All right, we start with breaking news as we look at the United States Capitol lit up and beautiful now 2 hours ahead of the State of the Union address by President Biden. Welcome to the fairest show on television. First tonight from Washington. Actually, and we do mean that actually, that the stakes are very high. For the first time in recent memory, the State of the Union address matters. The stakes are high for a president with a lot to lose and really very little to gain, which is kind of weird when you look at the polling. You would think he has little to lose and lots to gain. We're going to get into why it is the reverse. President Biden speaks in less than 2 hours. We're covering his speech tonight from all angles. George will on whether President Biden can actually move the needle with his remarks. Plus, Congressman Dan Kellie on the real prospect that the president faces of hecklers from his own party. We start our coverage with Kellie Meyer at the White House ahead of the president's departure. Good evening, Kellie.
Hey there, Leland. Well, a lot of talk about freedom we're expecting tonight. Freedom to vote, freedom to choose. A lot of talk about reproductive rights, as well as democracy. He's going to be talking a lot about what he calls the threat to democracy that his predecessor represents. There's also talk about his age. We received an excerpt from the White House tonight saying, quote, "My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy. Now some other people my age see a different story, an American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me," end quote. We also learned from a senior administration official that he is set to announce that the U.S. military will establish a port in Gaza along the coastline to move more humanitarian aid in. You might be able to hear the protesters right now outside of the White House who are calling for a ceasefire now. So you may hear more of that tonight as there is scrutiny around his support for Israel and the growing humanitarian loss there for innocent civilians in Gaza. We're also looking for him to talk about Ukraine funding, urging Republicans to pass that, as well as border security, though a White House official has told us that we are not expecting any kind of executive orders to happen in that speech tonight. There's no one referring to the border or no guests about the border or immigration in the First Lady's box tonight, but there are guests there that refer to or hope to get across the message of reproductive rights, with Katie Cox there, a guest of the First Lady. She's the woman that's suing Texas for having to go out of state to get an abortion, an emergency abortion that was recommended by her doctors. There's Sean Fain, the UAW president, as he received the endorsement. Biden received the endorsement from him, and he is going to be touting blue-collar jobs and trying to tout job creation. And then there's a Swedish prime minister, Sweden becoming welcoming into NATO today, something Trump has threatened to walk away from. So essentially a platform to deliver his message to the American people about why they should vote him in to serve another 4 years and keep this job in the Oval Office when Trump is saying to fire him. Leland?
Yeah, fair to say the timing on all this matters so much. This is the beginning of the general election for Joe Biden. I think you rightly point out, Kellie, the Gaza news was leaked early today about noon. Evidently, the protesters don't think it's enough. Kellie Meyer at the White House. Kellie, thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.